Hello, hi. I feel like I'm just getting going. I'm still in my comfy clothes today. I did my hair while I was on a Zoom this afternoon, listening in. Um, I just wanted to come on and do a video that is kind of a slowed down, simplified look at mostly the foundation. I will do a little bit of a really simple eyeshadow look, but I want this video to be one that people can come back to if they are kind of just getting their order and want to walk through the makeup kind of alongside me. So I'm gonna try to be super simple. If I get going too quickly, give me a slap on the wrist and tell me to slow down a little bit so that you can kind of follow along and go with me. So I wanna show you, this is the size of palette that I highly recommend. It's so dirty. I'm sorry. I should have wiped it off before I came on. I really recommend everyone kind of starts with this palette 12. You can start with, I know they give you a credit depending on how many tins you buy, and there's a handy little palette 4 that you can get, but I hear all the time that people wish that they would have got a bigger palette because they want to add to their palettes and theirs is full. So then theirs is full and they only need a couple more colors so that the credit they get is only enough to cover another small one. So then they have multiple little small palettes all over the place and they still don't have that convenience of the one palette, compact, whatever you want to call it, makeup. So I recommend going with the 12 because I guarantee you that you're gonna see another color come along that you want to add to it or whatever. So that's kind of what I recommend. I know that's one of the most common things that I hear from people is that they wish they would have bought a bigger palette right from the get-go. So that is my little word of advice. Hey Christina, thanks for watching. So I like the palette 12. So I'm gonna show you, I have the basic 3D foundation in here and you'll notice I have an empty spot. So that's fine. I almost gave you guys the finger. I stuck my finger in my lip and cheek color. I'm a mess today, you guys. It's kind of just been one of those days. Hi, Dee. So, yeah, nice gouge out of my lip and cheek color there. This is the basics. So I have 2 highlight colors here. When I send you your makeup consultation back, I always recommend 2 colors because this one, the one that's a little bit darker, is going to be your main shade. So that's what we're familiar with as our foundation. That's what we know liquid foundation as. It's just this main foundation shade, or main highlight is what I will call it when I send you your match back. And then the brightening shade, which is an optional one, but it does help create that 3D dimension to it. So it's gonna brighten up underneath your eyes. It's gonna draw the light to your eyes because you want your eyes to kind of be the focus of your face. So that's why there's 2 different highlight colors. And a lot of people always question, why is there 2 highlight colors in there? And that is why. It just helps create more dimension. You don't have to do 2 highlight colors. If you only wanna do 1 highlight color, then you're gonna only want the main shade. So just that little explanation there. And then with the contour shade, so what a contour is it's just something to help us. It is usually a cool brown shade, which means that it's just gonna help absorb light. So it's gonna help us create the illusion of a shadow. So it's gonna help us slim the cheeks out. It can help conceal double chin. And then where we naturally have dimension in our face, like our foreheads naturally start sloping backwards. So they're gonna have a little bit more depth there. So by adding that contour across our forehead, we're just helping create that dimension. And then also by having that darker shade here, it's drawing more light to our eye area. So that is all sending the focus to our eyes. And then I am going to use the lip and cheek color Plum today. So one of my special little ladies wants to see this one, so I'm gonna use that one today. And then I'm also gonna use the Illuminator Angel. So my lip and cheek color I can use as blush, lip color. I can also use it as an eyeshadow if I want to. It's really multi-use. I love that about SEINT. I could even use my contour as an eyeshadow if I want to. And then the Illuminator is kind of just like the icing on the cake. It's totally not a necessary step, but all it is just a light shimmery color, and it's just gonna help reflect the light even more. So by putting it on my cheekbone, I've created the illusion of shadow here, so I'm making my cheekbone look more pronounced with an extra shadow there. And then by adding that illuminator on top of my cheekbone, it's gonna reflect the light even more, so it's just gonna make my cheekbone pop, and it's gonna give me that healthy, glowy look. So that's the 3D steps. And then it's kind of the same concept with your eyes. So notice I have lots of room for growth here. Hey, Jen. And that's okay to have this space in here, but at least you have the option to grow a little bit into it, and you're not gonna run out of space with your first order and then have this tiny little compact and have it full, and then you need to get another one, and you miss the experience of how wonderful it is to only have one. So this one is definitely a good place to start. If you are somebody who likes to have lots of different color options, then you might even want to splurge a little bit more and get the palette 27, which is this one, which has quite a bit more room. There's 3 levels on this one, and it's a bigger level to begin with. So anyways, that's kind of for the extremists like myself that like lots of options. So, but the 12 is perfect because it's not super overwhelming, but there is room to kind of grow. So I have 4 eyeshadow colors in here and a setting powder. So really simple. And then I am going to do the cheetah hack method for this video because I want it to be super easy for beginners to come back and check out. And I just find that doing the cheetah hack is such an easy way to kind of remember where to place things. Plus, it's way easier to use the little amount of product that you need to use. So a lot of people, when they first get their products, we're used to using liquid, and liquid's first ingredient is most often water. So there is a lot of excess product there because it doesn't have the coverage that SEINT does. Some people will get these little tins and they will see them and think that is all that there is, but because there is no water in it, it's gonna last way longer than those bottles that are full of water, and you get more coverage from a little amount of product. You think you always use too much? Do you use the cheetah hack method? Maybe that will help you out. But so by doing the cheetah hack, it just makes it a little bit more simple in not overusing it, because I know when I first started out, I got this stuff and I was expecting to need to cake it on to get the amount of coverage that I needed, because that was when my acne was horrendous. And so I always felt like I needed to just load the product on and I needed to cake it on. And so I took my brush and I would scoop it out of the tin, and you do not need to scoop it. We're just gonna blot it in the tin. So my main one is kind of getting low. It's a little bit trickier, but I'll show you on my main one. I blot it in a couple of times, and that is lots. So it's highly pigmented. You do not need much at all. I should melt this one down. If your colors are getting down, then you can melt it down in like a frying pan so that you can get it all into the bottom again, so you're not scraping the sides like I am. I just keep putting it off and not getting to it. So you can see my main color is too dark for me, but I still like to have the dimension. So I'm using white peach a little bit, and I'm just gonna mix in some of my brightening shade with it so that it kind of tones it down and it's not too dark for me, but I still have a little bit more depth in this area so that when I use my brightening shade, there is a little bit of contrast. Which brush am I using? I'm using the Buff brush. So this one is definitely my favorite one. I love the flat, it's so hard to show it, but it's like a flat paddle end on both ends. And I should have cleaned it, but that's okay. And then I'm gonna take my main shade on my nose too. But because it works best to stipple the product on, I really love that flat end of this one. So, and to mix it, I either blot one on at a time and then mix it together, or I can blot both, but most people aren't gonna have to mix it like I do. But, so I'm doing my main shade just in this band across the middle of my forehead, in the area where a man grows a beard, and my nose. And then I'm only gonna take my brightening shade and I'll just apply it under my eye, and I'm gonna apply it in this whole area under my eye. So it's kind of like a slice of pizza shape, and I'm gonna blot a little bit on my eyelid. And then same thing over here. So I'm kind of doing the cheetah hack. I'm just applying my dots with my brush instead of my finger, which you can do either one. And then I'm gonna take my brightening shade between my eyebrows, right above my nose. And you can take your brightening shade kind of in your T-zone if you want to. Do you find it creases in your eyelid? Okay, so if I don't do it properly, yes, because our eyelid skin, our eye area is the thinnest skin on our face and it's moving the most. So it needs the least amount of makeup. So if you overuse it, you might find that it creases, but I will show you the tricks how to avoid that. So I'm gonna leave my dots like this. I'll come back to that, Jen, and show you how I prep it so that I do not have any creasing at all on my eyelids. I'm gonna go back into my contour and I'm gonna use henna is the one that I use. And then, so with my brush, you can see it's kind of on that angle. I take like the highest pointed end of it and I dip that part into my contour. And because it's so pigmented, we barely need to dot it in there. And depending on how much dimension you want, how glam you want to be, is how much product you're going to use here. So if you want your makeup to look more natural and you want it to just look like it's a natural shadow there, you only want a tiny little bit of product. But if you're doing something like having pictures taken where it's not going to quite show up as much, then you want to apply it a little bit heavier and not blend it as much. But I just want to show you how easily it blends together and how you can kind of build it and play around with it. So there's my contour, and then I am going to blend my contour in first right now because I've been trying to think back to when I first started and like the things and the mistakes that I made. And so when I first started, it was easier for me to put my contour on first because it was so overwhelming to remember, okay, which one goes where, which is which. So main one goes where a man grows a beard, your nose, and that strip right here. So you can see I put my brightening shade in this little triangle above my nose, and I have my contour here. And because all of these colors all have coverage built into them, we don't have to layer them on top of each other. So I only need the band of that main color right here where I'm not putting the contour or my brightening shade. So that's why I do that weird little strip here. So if it's easier to do your contour first and follow your hairline here, then totally do that. Find what works for you and just put this video on when you're doing it or whatever makes you feel most comfortable. But anyways, it was easier for me to do my contour first when I first started out. So I will start with that. And when we're blending in our contour, we are trying to make our faces get an upward lift to them. So I always want to take my brush and blend it upwards, and I'm putting my brush up towards my eyes and up towards my hairline. If I were to take my brush and I just swirl it around like this, it's just gonna kind of make it look like I have a dirty patch on my face. So when there is a shadow, there is always like a definite line of, I don't know if you can see that right there on the shadow, there's a line. So we want it to be blended in, but we want that line to actually have a noticeable start and stop to it, but blended in, if that makes any sense. So we want it to be a soft line, but we want it to be a line. And then another mistake that I see a lot of people making with their contour is they're applying it on too much of a downward angle. So because we are trying to lift our cheekbones up and make it look like maybe we got a facelift, which we didn't actually, but we're just faking it with makeup, we always want to keep it upwards and try to keep that line coming towards our nose instead of slanting it down like this. That can pull your face down even more and give you a fuller cheek look by putting your contour line like this instead of like this. So always blending upwards and towards your hairline. And then up here you can get away with swirling a little bit more. And another thing to really be aware of, my hair is thinning out so bad along my hairline. So you want to be conscious when you're applying it that you're kind of, especially if you're like me and you're so fair next to dark hair, you want to make sure that you are getting it right up into your hairline so that if you get sick of your hair through the day and you pull it back, you can see I have quite a noticeable white line there. So always make sure that you're blending away that white line. And then when you first start out, you'll find that blending this in with your brush is challenging. So I always recommend grabbing a perfector, some lipstick on there. These make it so much easier to blend everything in and help pick up excess product, because it's kind of inevitable when you first start, you're probably going to use too much because it's so crazy how little you need to use. So I'm just blending that in. And so I'm going for more of a natural kind of look. So I'm not letting it be too dark, and I'm really blending it in well so that it just looks natural. And again, upward strokes towards the hairline and towards my ear. And then I'm going to flip my brush back over to this wider end, and then I can blend in my highlight shades. You could start with your highlights. It's really whatever feels most comfortable to you. I'm just going to go back and read these before I get too distracted. Do clean your brushes between colors. Oh no, Jen, don't apologize for more questions. That's great. That's what I want this to be, for people to ask questions and get things figured out. So I don't, because I am putting so little product, I don't feel like I need to, but I am kind of keeping them separate too. So the brightening shade and the main shade, it won't really make too much of a difference. But if I was going from my highlight to my contour, then I might wipe it just to be sure that I'm not muddying it up too much. But typically you can kind of get away with it as long as you're not overusing too much product. But there is a great little tool that's called the brush cleaning tile, and it's awesome for that. If you are using the same brush, and for both, where is mine? I'll show it to you. So I have it in with my eyeshadows. I'll take it out. But it's just this little tin, and it has this like little spongy, I don't know what kind of material it is, but you just rub your brush over that and it wipes it all off. It's so handy to have. I used to use my hand all the time. That thing is awesome. I mostly use it for eyeshadow though. But I'll just blend this all in. And then you can also take your contour underneath your chin as well. I usually skip this, and I kind of forget that this is a really awesome trick for lots of you. So I'll try to show you the best way to do that too. Sorry, I'm looking past my phone because I can't see well enough to trust my phone. Okay, so you can see it's too harsh. I need to blend that in more, but I will show you how to contour your chin too. So again, I'm going back into my contour, and then the trick with this one is a lot of people will go like this and look in the mirror to apply it, but that isn't what people are gonna see when they're talking to you. So you want to try to keep your head straight when you're applying it, so that you're applying it so that you see what people are seeing with how you put it on. So try to keep your face flush with your camera so that you can see where your contour is going and what other people are gonna see when they see you. So if you're somebody who has, I know a lot of ladies who have like the jowls on the side of their cheek really love to contour that, and you can kind of go over top of your face a little bit to try to neutralize them a little bit, and it really does help a lot. And then once you have that line kind of established, then you can look underneath to make sure that you're blending it, because you're gonna wanna take a look and make sure you've blended it in so that you don't look in the mirror later and be like, oh my gosh, it looks like I painted on a chin strap. So you want to apply it looking straight on the mirror, but you want to put your head up and make sure that you blend it in looking in the mirror so that you can see that you haven't left a really harsh line here. And it looks really harsh on me because I'm so pale. But I'm gonna use my perfector to blend it down my neck a bit better and on my chin. And this does a really great job at like skimming off the chin and helping you feel more comfortable. If you have a double chin or something like that, they're really great to help you feel more comfortable with that, because it really does help conceal things. So then if you've applied it a little bit too heavy, you can take your perfector and gently wipe away. You don't want to go too much. So the trick with the perfector though is to make sure that you wet it down. So mine, I run it under a tap and then I squeeze it out. And make sure when you squeeze it, you're squeezing it like this. You're not like wringing it out, because that's going to break down your perfector much sooner. And just to show you the difference, so this is another perfector, it's a different color, it's the same brand though, but you can see how much bigger the wet one is, and this one is like firmer, it just doesn't blend as nicely as when it's damp like this. So you run it under water, squeeze it out like this as best you can, and then I even take it in a towel. I should have brought one in here. I even take it in a towel and I press it between a towel, so this barely feels like it's damp, but it's just full of water. And then I take it in around my eyes, especially, this is what I was talking about earlier to Jen, was just how if you overuse your product in your eyes, you might have some creasing. So if you find that you're getting creasing, you're using too much product. So I really like to get in around my eyes with my perfector to make sure that I have no excess product. So that's where I spend the most time focusing on, because it's so easy to overuse the product here because the skin is so thin and it's moving so much that it's really easy to overuse there, and that's when you might see some creasing. But as long as you do not overuse, you won't have any creasing. So I need to soften this a little bit more so that it's not super obviously contoured, and I'm not using a lot of pressure and I'm not pulling it very much. So if I put this on my skin and I go like this, it will wipe my makeup off. But when I'm just kind of like dabbing it and barely pulling it, it's just gonna blend it in together nicely and make it look like a softer, more natural contour. See how that side's just kind of harsh? And then this side is just soft, it's blended, but it is like detailed, if that makes sense. I never know the right word to say with that. But I'm just kind of bouncing it up and down to blend that contour in. And then I like to just dab it everywhere, because if I have gotten carried away with too much product, then I don't have to worry about any cakey feeling or looking, and it just really gives the longest, nicest looking application, and it feels the best. So the perfector is often an overlooked tool, but I feel like it's almost more important than your brushes because you probably could blend it with your perfector, but the tools really are important. So I know a lot of people kind of look when they're first getting started that it is a little bit of an investment to get started, because you need your brush and you need your setting spray and you need your perfector to go along with your foundation. But then once you get going with it, that stuff's gonna last you for a very long time. And then you only have to replace your one tin at a time, which is really nice. And you still have it in one palette. You don't have to replace your whole palette every single time you run out. So that's really nice that way. And then I'm going to take Plum, this lip and cheek, and I'm going to use it for both my blush and my lip color. So you can also use that for an eyeshadow if you want to. I'm going to use the eyeshadows, but just to mention it. Oh, you're welcome, Jen. Definitely try the perfector. I feel like I had such a shift in my love for the makeup when I realized how amazing the perfector was. And then it was like so much better even. Okay, so again, there is no water in these, so they are highly pigmented. The first time that I tried this stuff, I knew I was signing up to sell it. So I got all of my stuff and I picked up my blush. I was doing a live video and like swirled my brush in it and then went like this, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was so bad. But anyways, you don't need much. I blotted my brush in there again. And because I like that high lifted look, I'm going to apply my blush high up on my cheekbone up here, kind of right above where I contoured. I know that a lot of people will say smile and put your blush right here, but that really gives a fuller looking cheek, and I like the slimming effect and the higher looking cheekbone, so you can see like this is very pigmented. I'm using the blush and bronzer brush right now. I really like the 3D brush for my blush brush. I really like how dense the one wider end is, but the blush and bronzer brush is also really good. So I'm using the blush end, which is the smaller end, and then this is the bronzer end on our old style of brush. So I'm just blending it in, and I kind of always let it be a little bit more like darker than I actually want it to be, because when I put my setting spray on and I bounce my perfector over top of it, it is gonna tone it down a little bit. So it's a little bit harsher than I actually want it to look right now, but it's gonna tone it down. And there are colors that are more sheer. I know Black Cherry is one that I use a lot. You'll see it in my videos frequently. It is my favorite one, and it is, what do they call it on the site? I think they call it like a satin, or I can't remember. I'll add it in the comments how they explain the glossy ones compared to the matte ones. So the one I'm using right now is Plum, and the matte ones tend to be more pigmented than the sheer satin ones or whatever. You always do the apples of your cheeks. So you can, if you prefer that look, that's totally fine. It's just kind of a preference thing. I like the high lifted cheekbones, and some people prefer the look of a fuller cheek, and that is totally fine. So if that's what you like the best for you, don't feel bad about doing it that way. It's all about what you like. And then I'm just gonna use my finger to apply this, but I'm gonna put some lip moisturizer on first because my lips are so dry right now. I finally just got some peppermint flavor of our lip and cheek, or not lip and cheek, our lip moisturizer. It's so nice. I really like it. It's not like an overpowering mint, but just kind of a nice refreshing one. Okay, and so that's how it is on my finger. I probably picked up too much, and then I just like to slowly build up my color. So because I'm so fair, I like to keep it a little bit lighter than most people would probably apply it. So for a natural look, I would keep it at this, but I want to show you how you can kind of play around with it and get some different shades by how much you apply of it. So I'll put a little bit more on. And if you're somebody who prefers to use a brush, the multitasker brush is awesome for putting the lip color on, but I'm just somebody that is kind of lazy sometimes. So now I'm gonna set it, and the setting spray is really important to use because the creams are so great for us because they don't truly set, but they're meant to be easy to blend, so they're meant to move around. We do wanna set them. They don't set totally the way that liquid foundation sets, but it helps keep it from transferring off, and it helps keep it from creasing. So you do want to set it, but because it never truly sets and like dries in place, we never have that like dry, cracky feeling, and it's so nice. It's especially good for mature skin because it allows your skin to move around still, and it moves with it instead of kind of pulling and giving you that crunchy look. You know what I'm talking about? Anyway, sorry for the face I make when I do this. You can also just spray it directly onto your perfector, but I feel like I get a better job when I just spray it right on my face. And then I'm barely gonna press this into my skin, and I'm just gonna blot that into my skin. And you can see it kind of toned down my blush. Okay. Where did I get my nails done? I get them done in Rockville. I used to feel like that too, Jen, that I would wipe it all off, and I did in the beginning because I was getting my perfector too wet or leaving it too wet. That trick with the towel and squeezing it a lot so that it barely feels like there's anything there is really kind of the key, and then not pulling it when it's on your skin. So by just like bouncing it like this, it's not going to be sliding on and erasing your makeup off of your skin. Beginning, did you use a primer or setting spray for a primer? I did not. I normally moisturize my skin, and I completely forgot to do that step. So I usually like to take our just SEINT moisturizer and put that on as my primer. I just feel like I get a much smoother and better coverage over all of the texture that I have in my skin from acne scarring. But there is primers that have silicone in them, and that's kind of typically what most of them do have. And this cream makeup will not sit on it. So if you're using a primer that has any sort of silicone ending or silicone, you don't want to mix the two because it will literally melt off of your face. But if you do like to use a primer, you can just use some setting spray before you put it on, and it works as a really great primer. You've never used water. Yeah, the setting spray works too, but I would for sure wet it down before you put your setting spray on it too. And it just blends it all so nicely. Okay, so now I'm gonna take my illuminator, which is, I'm using Angel. And this one's a cream one, so I like to just use my finger to apply it. I just pick some up on my finger and it's just kind of shimmery. And I'm just gonna blot this on top of my cheekbone. And I like to just put kind of a little bit up around here, but not much. I'm gonna use this setting spray. Does your makeup last longer than without? Yes, absolutely. It really makes a difference in how well it stays on, especially with your mask. If you're putting masks on, the setting spray helps kind of just lock it in place. So the makeup can still move around with your skin, but it's not gonna be moving as much when you use the setting spray. So it really helps the longevity of your application to use the setting spray for sure. So, and you can see that, I don't know, this illuminator just gives you like a shimmery kind of dewy look. What main shade are you using here? And did you use a brightening shade? Oh, that's okay. I mixed White Peach and Versailles for my main shade, and then I'm using Versailles to brighten. How much is your setting spray? I think the setting spray is $41. I'm pretty sure that's the price on that. Okay. So now for the trick on getting zero creasing in my eyelid. So because I have so much coloration in my eyelid, I always like to use the highlight. So to avoid any creasing in that area, I made sure that I went over it with my perfector really well. And then I'm also gonna take my setting powder and I'm gonna apply a light dusting around my eye just to really make sure that it's locked in place. If I did get carried away with my product and I do have a little bit of excess on, this guarantees me I'm not going to have any creasing. And I also like it because it's a really great kind of primes the eyelid for the eyeshadow, so it makes it easier to blend the eyeshadows together once I use the setting powder, because the highlight really works as like a really great eyeshadow primer. So when you put it on top of it, it like sticks into it and then it's really hard to blend it. So I like to do my setting powder, just a light dust of it, and I'm using the blend brush to do this. I just really like this smaller, fluffier end, but it's not quite as big as like the bronzer brush or something, but I can kind of just target my eye area here. And if you're somebody who prefers the matte look, you could use setting powder all over your face to give you more of the matte look. SEINT definitely gives you more of that dewy, glowy kind of look. So if you prefer the matte look, you might prefer setting powder over top of it. Oh yeah, I love the blend brush. Do you use the blend brush for your foundation too, Jen? Is that what you use? I've never tried it for that, but okay. And then I am gonna just use the smaller end of this to do, I'm gonna use Drift on my brow bone, and I'm gonna try to keep my eyeshadow look super simple today. Oh, you do? I'll have to try that sometime. I've never used it. I know that it gives kind of a really nice light application, but I've never tried it myself. Okay, so I put Drift, which is this creamy color. I just did it on my brow bone, and then my eyelid. What is the glittery stuff? Like this one? Is this the one that you're talking about, Christina, or this one? And then I am just, so I have 4 colors in my palette, but I'm only gonna use one today. I just want a super simple look. So this one is Venus. It used to be called Sugar Plum. It's called Venus now. It's a super pretty, very, very soft purple hue to it. And then this one's Gigi, which is a little bit deeper purple, but it's also shimmery and super pretty. And this is the one that I'm gonna use today. I'm just gonna use Gigi. I might put a snip of Venus, I don't know, we'll see. I'm just gonna use my finger to pick up a little bit of Gigi, and I'm just gonna dab it onto my eyelid. I think it's really easy for me to get carried away and jump into 4 eyeshadows and forget that lots of you have never used eyeshadow before, and that's probably super intimidating for you. So I'm just gonna use this one color. I guess I used Drift too, so 2 colors. And show you that you can do a really nice look with just even 1 eyeshadow color. Because we can pretend that I didn't even use Drift. Eyeshadows scare you? Sorry, I probably make them so intimidating because I always use like 3 or 4 colors, but you don't have to get carried away with them for them to still be fun. So I'm avoiding going too high up. I'm kind of just only I'm following what I can feel in my eyeball. That's a really easy way to do it. Use your finger and follow your eyeball and just press it along where you can still feel your eyeball. Don't go up any higher, just do what you can feel on your eyeball. That is a super simple little hack for you. Okay, and then I'm gonna use my eyeshadow brush, and I'm gonna just use the smaller pointy end, and I'm gonna pick up just a tiny little bit, and I will just dust a little bit on the outer, like half of my eye, or 3/4 maybe, almost. And then the best thing to do is to always follow the angle of your lower lash lid for where your line of eyeshadow should stop. So a lot of people will take your eyeshadow and they'll pull it down following the slope of the top eyelid, and that's gonna pull your face down. So we just went through all that effort of the upward motions to make it look like we got a facelift, and then we come and we put our eyeshadow on and we kind of have it pulled down like I have it right here. So I'm gonna show you how to fix that too. And these eyeshadows are super pigmented as well, so you don't need very much of it. These tins will last a very long time. I use my Venus almost every single day, and I've been using it for over a year, and I still have this much left of it. It is my go-to. So now I've kind of made my eyes drag down here. So then I could either take my perfector to lightly go in here and kind of clean that up, or I could take, go back to my foundation brush and just, I'm not gonna pick up any more product, but I'm just gonna rub it along here and follow that upward angle of my lower lash line. And you could also do your eyeshadow before you do your foundation even. That's a really good habit if you're somebody that, like Shelly, makes yourself look like Mimi. I know that feeling well. That little trick with the foundation brush just really helps clean it up. And if you go too high with your, if you're feeling like you went too high like Mimi, you could use your perfector to go in and pull some of that off, or you could go as simple as wetting down like a Kleenex or something, and then just put the Kleenex over your finger, wet it down a little bit, and take it and just clean it up. Okay, and then I'm gonna fill in my brows. I feel like that's kind of out there for a lot of people, but I think it is, I like to show how much it really pulls things together. So I always use my line brush. It's got this nice pointy small end, and I pick up a little bit. I use the color Coal because my eyebrows are so dark. And then I find the bottom shape of my brow first, and I always start, you can see I kind of have some natural, sorry, I lost that nail. I kind of have some natural thinning here, so I don't want to go in with my brush full of powder right on the edge of my brow, but I'm going to find that lower shape kind of starting in the center here, and then I'll pull it forward to the center of my brow to fill that in, so I get more of a natural kind of ombre look, and then I pull it outwards towards the end. fill the top in. And I always remind myself that my eyebrows are sisters. They're not identical twins. We don't need to stress out that they don't look identical to each other. Mine are actually very different from each other even when I don't fill them in. I have a much nicer arch on my left eye than I do on my right eye. Okay, and then I take this other end and I take my spoolie and I kind of just rub it so that it looks a little bit more natural. And then I just put my mascara on and I'm done. You don't have to go super over the top. And by just using that one eyeshadow color on the lid, it still looks nice and done up. Aw, thanks, Jen. So I'm just curling my lashes. I always curl my lashes before I put my mascara on. And then if you pump your thing while you have it on there, it will give you more of a natural curl rather than that straight up and down look. And I like to use this Talk Beauty mascara since SEINT doesn't have a mascara yet. I hope someday they might come out with their own, but I really like this stuff. It has horsetail plant in it, which promotes lash growth and health. And it doesn't make my lashes feel, you know, that crunchy feeling that most mascara gives? I don't get that. It just feels nice and soft still, but then doesn't give me raccoon eyes. Oh, thank you, Tara. You're so sweet. You are seriously one of the nicest humans I've ever come across, so thank you. Jen, I actually used to despise that they didn't have mascara with that name because like people would stop me on the street and be like, hey, I need some new mascara, I'm all out. And I'm like, we don't actually have mascara. I know it's called mascara, but I was so glad that they changed the name. Okay, I'm not gonna go overboard, but it's really important when you're putting your mascara on that you twirl. So you spin your wand in your fingers as you're applying it, and that's gonna help separate your lashes so that you don't get the clumpy spider leg look to them so much. So that'll help separate them. But anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to do it kind of really slowed down and basic and explaining what I'm doing. So if you have any questions about the steps or about colors, please feel free to send me a message. I'm so happy to help you with that. I know that that's like the most intimidating part of makeup is trying to figure out what colors look good on you. And that has really become like one of my favorite parts about getting to do SEINT like this, because I remember being so overwhelmed in the makeup aisle and just like frustrated. Like, why can't I understand colors and how do I know if I'm like cool or warm? Like, what is all of that stuff? So now that I've learned that stuff, that's like my favorite part to solve for you guys, because I know that that's super intimidating. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. Let me know if you're watching the replay and if you are interested in figuring out what colors you might need with this stuff and you want to get started, please send me a message. I'm so happy to help you out with that. And if you have any questions once you get your makeup, anything like that, please feel free to reach out. And thank you guys so much for watching. I will talk to you all again soon. Bye guys.